If you'll please join me in prayer, if you'll close your eyes. Dear God, if left to my own devices, my perceptions will be skewed. I surrender to you everything that I think and feel. God, please take my past, plan my future, send your spirit to redeem my mind that I may be set free. May I be your channel, God, and serve the world. May I become who you would have me be, do what you would have me do, go where you would have me go, and say what you would have me say, and to whom. God, I thank you for your many, many blessings. Please help me to have an open mind for a new experience. We are in A Course in Miracles, the complete and annotated edition. I'm reading this with the Course Companions at this time. And we are reading, this is day 21, I think, yeah. And we are reading text 1, chapter 1, Miracle Principle 43. A major contribution of miracles is their strength in releasing a person from his misplaced sense of isolation, deprivation, and lack. They are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance. The emphasis on changing your mind needs further clarification. I'm going to read 105. The revelation's proper content was that those who change their mind, not name, about destruction or hate do not need to die. Whatever is true and real is eternal and cannot change or be changed. The spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect. But the mind can elect the level it chooses to serve. The only limit which is put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters. 106. Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. While the ballot itself is a secret one, and the right to vote is fully protected. Voting always entails both election and rejection. If two candidates are voted for the same position, the machine cancels the ballot automatically. This is necessary because a split vote does not represent any real allegiance. This is necessary because a split vote does not represent any real allegiance. Free will is the attribute of the mind, not the spirit. The spirit always remains changeless because it never leaves the sight of God. The creation of the spirit is already fully accomplished. The mind, if it votes to do so, becomes a medium by which the spirit can create along the lines of its own creation. If it does not freely elect to do so, it retains this creative ability, but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. As a result, what it makes is imprisonment, because such are the dictates of tyrants. To change your mind means to place it at the disposal of true authority. The miracle is thus a sign that the mind has elected to be guided by Christ in His service. The abundance of Christ is the natural result of choosing to follow Him. The following is in relation to the question of sex. You are involved with unconscious distortions which are producing a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach consciousness. Sex and miracles are both ways of relating. The nature of any interpersonal relationship is limited or defined by what you want it to do, which is why you want it in the first place. Relating is a way of achieving an outcome. Indiscriminate sexual impulses result in body image misperceptions. This is another reference to the body image distortion, see footnote 14, which is when a person's view of his or her body is significantly different from reality. And where did I leave off? Okay. This is an expression of an indiscriminate attempt to reach communion through the body. It involves not only improper self-identification, but also disrespect for the individuality of others. Self-control is not the whole answer to the problem, though I am by no means discouraging its use. It must be understood, however, that the underlying mechanism must be uprooted, a word you should understand well enough by now to regard it as frightening. 108. Text, chapter 126. It is more of a reaction formation against a pull which you recognize is so intense that you are afraid. You think you'll be uprooted. Atonement undoes all errors in this respect and thus uproots the real source of fear. If you will check back at the reference to uprooting, you will understand it better in this context. Uprooting can appear fearful because it seems as if we ourselves are being uprooted by the pull of God. Yet it should not be fearful, because what is really uprooted are those false roots that do not sustain us and merely cause fear. All shadow roots have to be uprooted because they are not deep enough to sustain you. The illusion that shallow roots can be deepened and thus made to hold is one of the corollaries on which the reversal of the golden rule referred to twice before is balanced. 109. Projection still has this hurling connotation because it involves hurling something you do not want and regard as dangerous and frightening to someone else. This is the opposite of the golden rule. Consider the golden rule again. If you are asked to behave toward others as you would have them behave toward you, this means that your perception of both must be accurate. Based on these earlier references, the reversal of the golden rule is when you take something you loathe in yourself and then project this onto others. You are thus giving unto others something you don't want to be giving unto you. This stems from perceiving both yourself and them inaccurately. So let me get back to that. All right, so I'm just going to repeat that sentence. The illusion that shallow roots can be deepened and thus made to hold is one of these corollaries on which the reversal of the golden rule referred to twice before is balanced. As these false underpinnings are uprooted or given up, equilibrium is experienced as unstable. But the fact that nothing is less stable than an orientation which is upside down. But the fact is that nothing is less stable than an orientation which is upside down. Anything that holds it that way is hardly conducive to greater stability. The whole danger of defenses lies in their propensity to hold misperceptions rigidly in place. This is why rigidity is regarded as stability by those who are off the mark. A rigid orientation can be extremely reliable even if it is upside down. In fact, the more consistently upside down it is, the more reliable it is. One of the more horrible examples of inverted or upside down thinking, and history is full of horrible examples of this, was the Nazis' final solution. I shed many tears over this, but it is by no means the only time I said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." All actions which stem from reverse thinking are literally the behavioral expressions of those who know not what they do. Actually, Jean Dixon was right on her emphasis on the feet on the ground and fingertips in heaven. That's 111. I think I missed 110. Oh no, that's 110. Luke 23:34. These, of course, are the words that Jesus, a Jew, reportedly uttered during his own execution at the hands of a tyrannical state. Did I say that right? Tyrannical? Okay. I like having my husband here. All actions which stem from reversed thinking are literally the behavioral expressions of those who know not what they do. Oh, I already read that. I apologize. No, see? Okay. I understand. I'm good. Jean Dixon. I got lost a little bit. Jean Dixon was one of the best known astrologers of the 20th century. The line that Jesus quotes here is apparently one that Dixon liked to repeat, as she said it 3 years later in the June 23, 1968 issue of the News Journal from Mansfield, Ohio. And that says page 11. God wants our lives to be balanced, and mine is, she said. I have my feet on the ground and my fingertips in the heavens. Okay, so now I'm back on track. Sorry. Although she was too literal for some, many people knew exactly what she meant, so her statement was the right miracle for them. I submit that if a mind is in a valid relationship with God, it can't be upside down. Many have lost sight in the end and are concentrating on the means. Remember the story about the artist who kept devoting himself to inventing better and better ways of sharpening pencils. He never created anything, but he had the sharpest pencil in town. The sexual language here is intentional. Sex is often utilized on behalf of very similar errors. Hostility, triumph, vengeance, and self-debasement, and all sorts of expressions of the lack of love are often very clearly seen in the accompanying fantasies. But it is a profound error to imagine that, because these fantasies are so frequent or occur so reliably, this implies validity. You can be wholly reliable and entirely wrong. Intellect may be a displacement upward, but sex can be a displacement outward. 112. Displacement is a Freudian defense mechanism whereby the mind unconsciously redirects energy from an object seen as dangerous or unacceptable to a substitute object. In this case, a sense of real closeness with others is being displaced from the mind where it belongs, to bodies, especially certain parts. How can you come close to others through the parts of you which are really invisible? The word invisible means cannot be seen or perceived. What cannot be perceived is hardly the right means for improving perception. 113. The body is in truth invisible because it is not real. As the Course will say later, everything you made, which includes the body, has never been and is invisible because the Holy Spirit does not see it. The confusion of miracle impulse with sexual impulse is a major source of perceptual distortion because it induces, rather than straightens out, the basic level confusion which underlies all those who seek happiness with the instruments of the world. Confusing the impulse to join minds, miracle impulse, with the impulse to join bodies, sexual impulse, reinforces the more basic confusion of the level of mind spirit with the level of body. In this confusion, we see happiness, which is of the mind, as coming from the instruments of the physical world. This is like thinking that water can be found in a barren desert. I just read that. Okay. A desert is a desert is a desert. 115. This seems to be a takeoff on the famous quotation from Gertrude Stein, "A rose is a rose is a rose," from her 1913 poem, Sacred Emily. You can do anything you want in it, but you cannot change it from what it is. It still lacks water, which is why it is a desert. The thing to do with a desert is to leave. See Cameo 10 under instruction, which I think we're reading next. All right, we're going to stop there in the book, but I'll go ahead and read Emily's notes. Day 21, text, chapter 1, Miracle Principle 43. I love the idea that miracles are our true, unalterable will, and everything else, all the unconscious distortions we create with our mind, can only succeed in hiding this from our awareness. This principle highlights that concept so well and summarizes it with a beautiful line. All shallow roots have to be uprooted because they are not deep enough to sustain you. This feels like what we're doing this year in our journey through the text, uprooting those shallow egoic roots that were never our source, and yet we cling to them as if they were. Robert has some wonderful thoughts on this section as well, so I'm going to turn the commentary over to him again. However, it's getting dark. I apologize. I'm just it's hard to read when it goes into the darkness. Okay. Robert has some wonderful thoughts on this section as well, and so I'm going to turn the commentary over to him again. However, since this section also features some of the more challenging material on sexuality, if you haven't already listened to my 7-minute audio recording on this topic, I encourage you to do so. Here is the link. About the changing your mind discussion, I think this point here is that when you change your mind, if it's a significant change, it looks like you've changed your identity. It looks like you've changed yourself at a fundamental level. What he is saying is that no, you've only changed your thinking. Your identity is your spirit, and that can never change. Your spirit doesn't even have free will in the sense that we think of it. In a sense, it can't help itself. It can't help but to be with God. I love that line. The spirit always remains changeless because it never leaves the sight of God. It makes me think of how parents want to make sure their children never leave their sight. Because your spirit, your real identity, is changeless, that sets certain limits on your mind. It means, as I said, your mind can't change your actual identity. It can only make choices on a level beneath that. And in its choices, the right choice is not up to it, but rather is already set. That right choice is acknowledging and placing itself at the disposal of true authority, the authority. All in all, then, changing our mind, as important as that is, takes place within certain bounds. I've always found the sex discussions challenging. However, I think some of the main points he makes here are easy to see reflected in human experience. We tend to think that being intellectual is a displacement. We've displaced our energy from where it should be to somewhere else, from our heart to our head. And it can be exactly that. In contrast, we think of sex as being truly natural. But Jesus is saying that it too can be a displacement outward. His big point here, at least in my view, is that you aren't going to get truly close to others through sex, and you aren't going to be truly sustained by sex. I think if we looked honestly, we can readily see this both in our lives and in the world. Partners can be having amazing sex together without being actually close. People can have very active sex lives without feeling actually sustained. How can we get truly close to others and feel truly sustained? Through miracles, through genuine expressions of love from one mind to another mind. Sex and miracles are both ways of relating, and he wants our relating to be miracle-based or miracle-inspired, as he says at one point, rather than sexually based. If it is, we will actually feel close to others, and we will actually feel sustained, as if we have sunk roots deep into the ground and are drawing from an endless well. That doesn't sound easy, but it does sound true to me. And that's all she wrote. Thank you so much for joining with me for the Course Companions Day 21 commentary on Chapter 1, Miracle 43. And I'm just going to repeat that miracle real quick. Not the whole thing, just the bold. A major contribution of miracles is their strength in releasing a person from his misplaced sense of isolation, deprivation, and lack. They are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance. Thank you. I love you.